All right, here we are. Welcome to All Music with Todd Ledbetter. And today we have 1974. 1974 is a good year. I was 10 years old, so I didn't hear a lot of these albums when they first came out. Although I did hear some of these on AM radio, of course. And by the time I was 11, I started collecting my own records. But before that, I was listening to my parents' records, and there's a lot of good ones in there, and records that I still love to this day. But this is 1974. Now these are my favorite picks, my top six picks that I like today. Some of these groups I wasn't a fan of when I was young. I didn't really know of them too well, and even as a younger man, I didn't really listen to some of these albums. And when I started discovering some of these groups, that over the last 30, 40 years, I really started to develop a real passion for some of these groups, and just over time appreciated what each one of these groups and albums, represented especially for the time, but even how they hold up to this day. And I would listen to any of these, and I do listen to these albums still today. So I'm super excited to get into 1974. So with that, we'll go ahead and start with my number six pick. Let's see here, which is one of my favorite bands when I was a kid too. I really really loved this band when I was a kid, and this is like their second album, and it's Queen, Sheer Heart Attack, and it's got a lot of great songs. I mean, it's got some rockers. That's what I love about Queen, is that they can rock, Brighton Rock, Killer Queen, and then you got some real sweet songs too, where Freddie's playing piano, and even some of the songs that have sort of a 40s or a 20s feel to them. I'm not really sure if it's 40s or 20s, but just that style that he does, that's really cool, and for some reason I like it. And it's got a lot of songs on it. It's 54 minutes. This is a long album, 18 songs, but this is a great album, and kind of a real introduction to, of course, Queen. And I really, really like this album, and they were just starting to, sort of break loose. And like Now I'm Here is a great song, and then of course Killer Queen, you hear a lot on the radio. Great, still to this day. Stone Cold Crazy. I mean, that song just is killer. I love it. Oh, so that's my number six for 1974. We're gonna go to my number five, which is, once again, I have to admit, I didn't know that I was going to be loving this group as much as I do until I started doing this countdown, on this sort of ranking of albums. And and I really believe that it's for good reason, because this is a really good band, and I keep on bringing them up, and they in my top six, and here it is again, Steely Dan with Pretzel Logic. I just really like Steely Dan more than I realized I liked them, over my lifetime. I love Ricky Don't Lose That Number. I always thought that was just a cool song. Night by Night. I love Any Major Dude Will Tell You. It's such a cool song. Pretzel Logic. There's just a lot of really good songs on here, and just the way that they, I've mentioned it before, but their production value, and the artistry of the musicians that they have in the studio that put these albums together and play on these albums are just, top notch and just super creative. I really 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 like Steely Dan. So that's my number five, Pretzel Logic by Steely Dan. Yeah, I'm a little surprised. I don't know why, but the more I hear Steely Dan, just the more I like them over time. Um, Now the next album is just a great rocker. Love this album, and he's I'm just going to tell you who it is. It's Robin Trower, Bridge of Sighs, Day of the Eagle. Such a cool tune. I love it. And just the guitar work and just his tone and his guitar is amazing. Bridge of Sighs, another just great song. In This Place, The Fool and Me. I love Two Rolling Stone. It's just so good. It's just a great song. This is a great album. It just sounds sonically just so good. And you just kind of get lost in the music when you're listening to it. That's one of the things I really like about it. That's my what was that, number 4. So that means we're halfway there. So I've got my top 6 is 1974, and we're going to go to number 3. Not sure you're going to, I mean, I don't see how anybody could really argue with my number 3, frankly. I mean, it's such a classic album, really from start to finish. And I love the lead vocalist's voice. Of course, Bad Company. I believe this is their first album, Bad Company, self-titled in 1974. This has got just so many great songs on it. Um, this I don't know, this particular deluxe version's got a bunch of extra stuff here, like different demo tracks and stuff like that. But can't get enough. That's a classic rock song. Rock Steady, great. Ready for Love, Don't Let Me Down, Bad Company, such a good song. The Way I Choose, Moving On, and Seagull, such great songs. This is a fantastic album, and for a first album, this is a really good debut album for a group. And that's my number 3 pick for 1974. Let's see. So now we're down to my top 2, and it wasn't really a very hard choice, frankly, but they're both really great albums. And I guess I'll be exposing what I mean by that any second now. But my number 2 album is Supertramp, Crime of the Century. I mean, this is one of the first prog, pretty prog rock albums that I got into when I was a kid. It's a really good album. I just love it. School is a great tune. Bloody Well Right, Hide in Your Shell, Asylum. I love Dreamer, so good, and Rudy. All these are such great songs. Crime of the Century, it's a great song. Even when I was listening, or I mean, if everyone was listening, it's a great song. Crime of the Century, I love that song. All these songs are really good. This is a classic Supertramp album, and if you're into the prog rock type of music, this is one that's fantastic. For me, though, it's kind of I'm finding it interesting how many bands have released album after album 1 year, 1 year apart, and some bands have been releasing albums like 2 in a year. Not some of my favorite albums, and not some of them that are on my list. But and I'm usually not picking like last year in '73. Yes, had 2 albums that they released, but I think I just picked one of them because I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, but 72 or 73. I liked definitely one better than the other. But here's another case of that exact scenario where another one of my favorite bands has yet again put a record out another year apart, and that's no surprise to anybody. Genesis. At this point, you shouldn't be surprised. Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. One of my favorite bands, and they're landing in my top 3, top 1, top 2 of these lists for the last, since 1970. And this is a super great album. The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, Fly in the Windshield, Broadway Medley of '74. In the Cage is a great album. This is the last. This is the last album that Peter Gabriel will be the lead singer of Genesis. he leaves the band soon after this album was made. And I mean, as it was even taken off, I think the newspapers and the magazines or whatever in England sort of reported that Peter Gabriel was leaving Genesis. And that's how the rest of the group found out, was not even by Peter telling him. And who knows? They're all great guys and they all still, care about each other and all of that. But, there's probably just some things went down as they do in bands. But this is a really good album. It's got just some masterpieces on here, and some of like In the Cage and The Lamp Lies Down on Broadway, and those are some of Genesis early classic songs. One of my favorite songs on this album is right down here, number 10, Carpet Crawler. A super great song. It's just got a great melody, and so then after this year, Phil Collins takes over as lead vocalist. But I don't know if you know, but in 1970 or 1996, I believe it was, they released another album after Phil Collins left with Ray Wilson as lead vocalist, and it didn't go over well, and they pretty much, kind of didn't move on with that lineup. But Ray Wilson does a fantastic job of Carpet Crawlers. You can find it online. Just look for Ray Wilson, Genesis, Carpet Crawlers, and he sings a beautiful version of this song. So good. So that's it right there. That is my top 6 for 1974. It starts off with Queen, Sheer Heart Attack at number 6. Number 5 is Steely Dan and Pretzel Logic. Robin Trower, Bridge of Sighs, number 4. And then the self-titled debut album of Bad Company is number 3. Just top to bottom, song after song. Great, super great album. Supertramp, also super great. Crime of the Century, my number 2. And number 1, once again, is Genesis. Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. I'm afraid that anytime Genesis has released an album in the year that I'm doing, then they're probably going to be up there at number 1 or number 2, or up there high, because I listen to them like crazy. I love them, and I know a lot about them, and I know a lot about their songs, and I really like them. Far and away more than any of these other bands on this list. So that's just so you know, I'm a little bit fanatical about the early Genesis. But that's it. I want to thank you guys for watching my new channel as it grows, and please participate in liking and sharing the videos, and also comment, please. I'm starting to get a little bit of comment and some feedback, and some people are letting me know what other albums that they liked in the particular years, and that's really cool because I'm really interested in what you guys like. Also subscribe so I can grow my channel, and click the notification bell. And if you are interested in supporting the channel in any other way, they're down in the description. There's some other ways that you can help support the channel, and I would appreciate it if you check that out. And if it's something you feel like doing, that's great. If not, no worries. YouTube is free, and I'm going to keep doing these. We're only at 1974, and I plan on going as far as up to today, and see where it takes us as far as what kind of albums I like in the years to come. I know, through the 90s and 2000s, I've got a lot of favorite albums. But then after that, you started getting into the streaming and the singles, and it's going to be interesting to figure out, as I do research, what albums I still like, especially over the last 5 and 8 years, the way the music industry has been and the way that we consume music. So thank you for listening. Todd Ledbetter at All Music. This was 1974, and we're going to catch you again in 1975. So we'll see you there.